Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jonathan Bailor back with another episode of the SANE Show, and a special episode for you today. Not like the normal, going to be a little abnormal today, but I think you're going to like it. We have the global credibility expert in the world with us today. His name is Mitchell Levy, and we're going to talk about something that I don't know if he's ever talked about publicly before. But before we get into that, Mitchell, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I've had the great privilege of chatting on numerous occasions with Mitchell. And as I mentioned earlier, he is an expert in credibility. But what I wanted to focus on in this call, sometimes we talk about credibility in terms of, my LinkedIn profile, how credible do I look? Or on my job application, how credible do I look? But I want to talk about credibility with ourselves. Meaning, how much do we live up to our own expectations of ourselves? And just to kick off the conversation, Mitchell, how would you define self-credibility, or would you use even a different term?
No, I'd use the same term. So let me do credibility. I'll give you the definition. In the dictionary, it says that it's the quality in which you're trusted, but that's only 1/3 accurate. Credibility is the quality in which you are known, that people know you, that you're likable and you're trustworthy. Now, when you think about know, like, and trust, you can't be credible externally until you're credible internally. So if you don't like yourself, if you don't have the integrity and the intent and commitment to do the right things, if you don't have the components that are associated with credibility internally, it's going to be hard to manifest it externally.
Each one of those components are shows in and of themselves. So we're gonna have to try to condense this, because we could go really deep here. The idea of, you said, know, like, and trust. So for a lot of us, let's say trusting ourselves. So let's say the example is, I've tried to eat more healthfully so many times in the past. I've made that commitment to myself so many times in the past, and I've broken it so many times in the past. I don't trust myself. How does one fix that?
Well, they hired Jonathan. No, it's really interesting to be thinking about something that you've not been able to do well in the past. So how do you fix something? There are two choices, right? One is you get a accountability coach to support you. If you can't be as good of an accountability coach to yourself, then you could have somebody support you. But even then, you could still cheat, whatever cheating is. The second is you break the habit, right? So for me, when I'm thinking about credibility, a lot of times I find it credible if you have a meeting to come on time. A lot of people have been taught that to be credible, you have to have lots of meetings in a day, and you could end up coming up late. But what you're really doing is being rude. Now, once you teach somebody that if you come late to a meeting, you actually are being rude, you're not being credible, hopefully what happens is they learn, oh, maybe I need to adjust my calendar. Maybe I need to set things in a different way. The same thing is true on trusting yourself with a way and concept of eating. You either, once again, get the accountability coach, or you change your mindset, you change your habits so that you're just looking at the world in a different way.
So, Mitchell, let me try to break that down a little bit, if you don't mind. You mentioned the example of meetings, which I think is a great one. I pack more meetings in the day. I've been maybe more productive. People have that mindset. I see, maybe let's continue the analogy with lifestyle change. I am going to completely overhaul my diet. I'm going to change. I'm never going to eat sugar again. I'm going to eat 100 servings of vegetables a day. I'm going to go perfectly keto all the time. And then we don't feel credible with ourselves because we're not instantly perfect. But it sounds like maybe like micro commitments, like don't maybe make smaller commitments to yourself that you can keep. Is that kind of where we're headed here?
I was going to say you have to do things that are realistic, and it has to. There's a couple of things that happen when you're looking for credibility, even credibility on your diet, whether it's your diet or credibility on working out or credibility on how you dress or credibility at a networking event, how you show up. The most important thing you have to think about is, who are you Like who really are you as a person? And if you're a certain way today and you want to go somewhere else, what are the baby steps you're going to take to get there? And at each step along the way, reward yourself. Now, in this case, if you want sugar out of your life, don't reward yourself with a banana split. Reward yourself with other ways in which you can compensate yourself. If you're setting unrealistic expectations, then what happens is you don't like yourself when you miss those expectations. You start thinking, you start shaming yourself, which is not the right way. With reward systems. Is carrots better than sticks? Or in this case, is carrots better than sugar? Yes.
This idea of baby steps, and it makes logical sense that if we're trying to, in other words, rehabilitate our trust with ourselves, how do you do that? Well, you one step at a time, and ideally one small step at a time. So don't make some, I'm going to radically change this overnight. What is something you know you can do? I mean, even I remember hearing a story about, someone was like, I can't get out of bed in the morning. I can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm so depressed. I can't get out of bed in the morning. The therapist would say, well, can you pull the sheet off? Okay, I can pull the sheet off. Okay, cool. Can you move one leg 6 inches to the right? Yeah, I can move one leg 6 inches. And you continue this until magically you're out of the bed because you broke it down into smaller pieces. Same kind of thing.
It's absolutely magic.
Beautiful.
Agreed.
So that is trust. Know, like, and trust.
Yes.
Like, this is kind of a sticky wicket here because for a lot of us, if we think about credibility with the self, we live in a culture that from the day we're conscious tells us that unless we buy more, do more, or achieve more, we're not necessarily likable. So how do we like ourselves?
I'm going to say bullshit.
Uh-oh, cursed. He's serious. That's credible.
Right. By the way, you are right. We are covering this topic in a way I've not done before. So thank you. There are two components associated with being likable. Okay. And one is, I call it sharing the stage. So sharing the stage is when you have something really good that you've seen other people do, you share it with others. The second is showing respect. And this is where the time thing comes in, coming early, being prepared, coming with your heart. So in terms of sharing the stage, a lot of times what happens if you're doing a diet and you're doing a micro diet, you need to let people know about it. Let those people that are in your surroundings know about it. Share the stage. Hey, listen, I'm doing the insane diet. No, I'm sorry. I'm doing the SANE diet. And sorry, you were supposed to laugh when I said that. You probably heard that joke too many times. Okay. So I'm doing the SANE diet and I'd like you to help me if you see me going off tier, right? That's sort of sharing the stage. And this Jonathan's guy is great. And I love that. On the component that's associated with showing respect, the most important thing you need to do is show respect for yourself. Right. And once again, if it's the baby steps, like, what are you doing? Like for me personally, we would, that I don't always eat great every meal at night, but now since rewatching or watching your videos, I'm 3-4 nights a week. I'm just doing chicken, broiled chicken. Right. And the truth is it tastes really good. Right. But it's not the same as all the other stuff we have. So chicken and vegetables and so on. And I don't feel I can do that 7 days a week, but I feel I could do it 3 or 4. So it's a baby step. Right. And what else am I doing? What other things am I incorporating into my diet that I ultimately can respect myself? And I think in watching your movie and hearing the things that you talk about, it really is, you have to break the old habits to be able to start introducing new ones. And I think what most people don't do, what consumerism does is it really does teach you that if you don't look like this or don't do that or don't buy this, you're bad. Right. I mean, that's what they do. Spend money with this firm and you're bad. And that really is where the BS comes in. What you have to figure out is who are you and what's relevant for you. And if you like you, you could like yourself at different weight points. The question is, if you want to avoid a diabetic situation, those people around you, they're going to get to like you more if you take better care of yourself now. So sometimes you're doing it for yourself. Sometimes you're also doing things for others.
Tying it back to the baby steps, which may be a kind of a common denominator we find that goes throughout all of this. I can also imagine that, like, what you said sort of inspired in me is that we got to get a little bit maybe more creative in what we're looking to like about ourselves, if that makes sense. In the sense, like, even the thought, like, I deserve better. Like, I like that I had that thought. I mean, I like that I am not a homeless. I like that I have a dog that loves me and cares for me. Like, we have a tendency as people, it seems, to really compare ourselves to those that we think are far better off than us. But I mean, I'll be so bold to say that anyone who is watching or listening to this conversation right now is in the most privileged 1% of the population of the world, and there's a lot of things to like if that's what we're looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's some fundamental foundation levels that are part of you liking yourself. And those two foundations are financial and spiritual. And from a financial perspective, it doesn't mean you're rich. It means that you've got covered what you need to get covered. So I actually don't necessarily think that homeless is bad if that's your desire. Right? If you don't want to be homeless and you're living that way, then that's something that's different, right? And if you want to fix that, that's a different scenario. Fundamentally, though, even if you're homeless, if spiritually you're covered, whether that's religious or your internal God, that's a different area. So I think on the like part, a lot of times people have been, what I say in the TED talk that I did on credibility is that many people who are teaching you, and I call the opposite of credible dubious, many people who are teaching you dubious, they are innocent, even though they're teaching you dubious ways, because that's what they know and that's what they were taught. And those before them were taught that way. And so what needs to happen is you need someone to come around. You need an approach to come around. You need something come around that's going to break the mold of you thinking a particular way. And then, yeah, maybe it's baby steps. Sometimes it's big steps, but it's simply, who am I going to be tomorrow? And I like myself this way. So how do you make sure you get to be that person?
It sounds a lot like the distinction of having what you want versus wanting what you have.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Mas or menos, maybe. We got something. So know, like, and trust. All right.
Yeah,
so what do we got? We got like, we've covered trust, know thyself.
So the know piece, I'll tell you specifically the components associated with credibility. It's one is you're of service to others. The next is you have the intent and commitment to do the right thing. And the last is that you have integrity. So, the thing is, in this particular case, what's the right thing, right? If we're talking about your diet, if we're talking about integrity, when you do it, let's say you and your spouse are on a diet together or dieting together, and then you go out and do something that is not on the diet, you're not cheating the spouse because they don't see it. You're cheating yourself. Right. And so it comes down to, can we, for a period of time, and, maybe you do something for a short period of time, you do it for 5 days or 10 days. And, how was that? Let's take a break for a couple of days and then do it again. what might shock you is if you did something for a period of time, whether it's 5, 10, 15 days or whatever habit forming time frame you have, you do something for 30 days and then you take 5 days off. When you take the 5 days off, you're not going to want to go back to who you were because you're going to be so proud of who you are now. And when you start showing that up that way, and I think from a credibility perspective, the most relevant person I could think of is somebody who knows who, let's put it a different way. 98% of the people I interviewed needed clarity on who they served and the pain point they served. 98%. Like that's like almost everyone, right? And so the question becomes for you, if who are you serving? If you're serving yourself, let's say what you eat, like what are you feeding yourself? What are you serving? I haven't thought about this before. It's kind of fascinating. And so are you feeding yourself the stuff that's going to make you better tomorrow? And the answer should be yes. I mean, we want this everywhere. If you're in business, you want to feed yourself a content-rich diet that gives you enough content to learn, grow, and do other things. If you're serving other people, what are you feeding them so that they can grow? And so in terms of what you're talking about, it's what are you feeding yourself?
And I can see there's a challenge there unique to the wellness arena because a lot of us don't know what to eat. That's part of the problem. I mean, we know, for example, that Mountain Dew is not as desirable a beverage as clean, sparkling, filtered water, but there is a lot of challenge just around that. So, I mean, in terms of knowing, how do we know what we don't know? How do we get that information?
You know, and that's a good tie into what the movie that my wife and I watched that you put together was so valuable from a perspective of learning things that we didn't want to learn, but we couldn't not hear once we learned them. Right. And it's when I think about what you did, I think about what I do in terms of credibility and people understanding their CPOP and understanding their customer point of pain. It's so simple when you hear it that it's hard to refute. And so the stuff, who do you learn from? There's so many different diets out there and there's so many different practitioners and so many different approaches. First of all, I'm going to say, do what works for you. Right. And so there's not a one size fits all for every human. Second, I think, Jonathan, when I looked at the stuff you're doing, I actually want the mini refresher movie now. Right. I saw the big movie now. Okay, I'm ready. Once a week, give me that 2-minute like refresher thing. Right. That gets me going because I do want to learn and grow from you in terms of who you are and what you do, because I watched who you talked to and what you did and the things you strung together. And it's really powerful to see the simplicity of the research and the work that you've done to make that happen. And so you're credible at what you've done, and you've been able to educate in such a way that it's consumable for the person who's watching. And that's what when we're in business, that's what we need to do. What is our passion? What's our excitement? What do we care about in terms of serving others? And then how can we package up content in such a way that's consumable by those people who are now our audience going forward? You've done that for you, and I'm doing that with Credibility Nation. And for somebody who's watching, A, what are you doing for yourself? And then B, what are you doing for others?
Mitchell, it's beautiful. And as you mentioned here, as we reach the end of our time together, I do want to shed a spotlight on what you are doing and where folks can go to learn more about you. And we've obviously gone in a direction which is very unique and novel. And frankly, I thank you for kind of going out of your wheelhouse here with us, because it shows how credible you are. And that, this is not something that's been pre-scripted. This is something that's coming from the heart. And I really appreciate that. So if folks want to learn more about what you're up to and who you are as an individual, where can they go?
So credibilitynation.com is the membership community where if you want to learn and get continual reinforcement and meet, imagine going to a place where you get to know, like, and trust other people, that they have your interest in mind, that it's selfless, not self-serving. So that's credibilitynation.com. And for those listening or watching, if you need to book time on my calendar, you could find time through Credibility Nation. Or if you're really dying to get time tomorrow, go to mitchellevy360.com. You can book time on my calendar, see the social media, and see whatever we're doing at we point people back to Credibility Nation.
Beautiful. Well, Mitchell, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all you're doing to tip the scales in our world from dubious to credible. And if you want to learn more about that, I've seen the graphic. You want to go to credibilitynation.com. Mitchell Levy, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jonathan. Great being with you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Know, like, and trust. Be incredible with ourselves. What an interesting topic. Please go check out credibilitynation.com. And remember, stay sane.